What is up, everybody? You're back on another episode of the Chronically Motivated Project. If you've been listening this whole time and you haven't subscribed yet, go make sure you subscribe. Today is Donuts and Diabetes Day, and I'm talking about a really serious subject, one that I've encountered more times than I'd like to admit. Today we're talking about diabetic burnout and dealing with diabetes burnout. You hear the term thrown around a lot. What is diabetes burnout? I'm going through diabetic burnout. Is it depression? What is it? Diabetes burnout is different for everyone. It's an individual issue that people face with diabetes. It's almost a guarantee that you're going to face it at some point in your life if you have diabetes. Diabetes is a minute-by-minute condition, and it's so tedious. Some things just don't go right. Most things just don't go right. And of course you're going to get burnout. To me, diabetes burnout is an emotional state. It's one where you're just tired. You're tired of not only the shots and the finger pricks and all that, but you're tired of the monotony of life. You're tired of constantly checking your sugar and it never being perfect, or seeming like it's never perfect, and when it is, it's temporary, and then your blood sugar goes out of whack for no reason. You can't pinpoint why, and you're just tired. You're tired of dealing with it. You're asking yourself, why am I even dealing with this? Like, why do I even keep trying if it's almost impossible, seemingly impossible, to control my sugar? You're just tired. That's gonna happen. That's okay. Somehow, some way, people have taken that and turned that into, oh, you're a bad patient if you get burnt out with your condition that I don't have, but I'm gonna reprimand you for that. That doesn't make sense. It's okay to feel burnt out. It's our right as diabetics. It is our right to be burnt out. It's a feeling that happens in dealing with this condition that is different day to day. You can eat the exact same foods and master your blood sugar, or even if you're a parent of a type 1, you can master these sugars one day and do the exact same protocol you just did, and it doesn't work the next day. It's up and down. It's like you're constantly chasing sugars. It's a roller coaster of sugars. And some days the mental fortitude you have is just impenetrable. You're strong as hell and nothing can get you down. And after so long of doing that, you hit a bump in the road and you get a flat tire. That's what I think of as diabetes burnout. It's a crappy situation when it happens. And like I said, it's happened to me more than I care to admit. And I almost feel bad talking about my diabetes burnout because of where I'm at, because of the platform I'm on, and because of how people regard me as a speaker in the diabetic community. But I shouldn't feel bad about being real. I shouldn't feel bad about having diabetes burnout at different times, because that's a reality. And if I didn't tell you guys about my diabetes burnout, I wouldn't feel transparent. I would feel like a fake person trying to impress you, and that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to give it to you guys real and to give it to you guys straight. There's been quite a few times, even recently, where I've found myself in my own burnout. And when I burn out, what happens is I check my sugar once a day, maybe once every other day. I go by feeling. I've even given myself insulin just because I feel high or I feel low. Now, granted, I'm pretty aware of my sugars, but I don't know my body. I hate that saying. That it's not good what I was doing, but I was so burnt out that I just not saying I didn't care, but I didn't care, I didn't have a drive to really know my sugar. I didn't have a drive to check before I inject. I was just so burnt out. I wish I could explain why, sometimes stuff just happens. Everything kind of compiles in your life, and you might see this perfect life on social media. You might see this perfect life of someone you really look up to, but understand everyone has their struggles. I do, you do, your doctors do, your inspirations do, your heroes do, everyone, you know? And I battle that just the same as other people do, maybe more, maybe less. But it's okay. It's my right to feel that, you know? I'm usually very, very hard and very straightforward. Not like thug, but I'm for real. Like I'm very straightforward with people, and I try and help as much as possible. And I give tough love, but that doesn't mean I don't experience all the hurt and all the other stuff that comes with having diabetes. It's a struggle, man. It's not easy. 80% of it I've got down. Concepts I've gotten down. I understand everything from pre-bolus and how to use temp basals and all the fancy tricks and the works, and talk with the highest level endocrinologists and certified diabetes educators and researchers. And I speak at all these conventions. 80% of it is the knowledge, but that 20%, man, that variable, it'll get you, you know? But it's okay to feel that. And that's where, like, if you're a guy listening, man to man, it's okay to feel burnt out. Man to woman, you don't have to be tough. You know, you can stay tough, but you can admit to having burnout, because that's the first step in getting through that emotional state. Sometimes burnout comes in just feelings. You know, you're tired of things and it's annoying, and you start questioning, you start worrying about all these things you can't control, like possible complications, just wanting to give up, all these feelings, these fleeting feelings that are just constantly going on in your head. For some people, it stops at feelings. Some people, it translates into action. You stop checking your sugars as often as you should. You don't take your insulin like you should. And, you know, that's never a good thing to alter your medication regimen, but it is a part of burnout for some people. For some people, you know, it's just their state of mind. For others, they take it pretty far. It happens. I'm going to keep saying that because it does happen, and we all need to be accepting of that. So when other people go through it and they finally get the courage to step up and say something, you don't judge. You know, the last thing someone needs is being on this bout of diabetic type depression or just distraught from the day-to-day monotony, and then they get judged because they're having a hard time, when you know you've probably had a hard time as well. You know, with this state of mind comes it comes a level of responsibility. You know, it is your right to experience diabetes burnout, but it's also your responsibility to get over it eventually. Not get over it in the sense of get over yourself, but to get through it, I should say. You have to accept what is and what isn't. That's part of the whole diabetes burnout thing, is not wanting to have this condition, wishing you had a different life, wishing diabetes wasn't, you know, with you. Why me? All this stuff starts to come in your head, and you have to accept what is. You have to waste no more time wishing for something that isn't. You have to be real with yourself and say, I have diabetes and it's never going to leave. What can I do now? You know, you have to accept that the condition is, regardless of the monotony and the tedious behaviors that it requires and actions and all these things, you have to accept that. But you also have to accept what isn't. When you have burnout, your life isn't over. Going through a stage of diabetic burnout doesn't mean that you're guaranteed complications. As you may recall from previous talks, complications are not avoided from A1C alone. I know some great people with the most controlled A1Cs I've ever seen going through complications at this very moment. Just as I know some people who have some A1Cs in the 10s plus with no complications over 60 years. Just because you're having a bad moment, it doesn't guarantee that you're nailing your coffin shut. That's not how it works. So you have to understand that the reality of it is that a bad moment or a bad sugar is nothing more than data. It's nothing more than a moment, you know? Your sugar is data. It's not an emotional number. It's just a number that you tie emotion to, especially when you're going through diabetes burnout. it's just a moment. It's just a bad period of time where this dark cloud is hanging over your head. You have to accept that it is just a moment. It is not a defining moment. It's a fleeting moment. Then you have to identify why. Why do you think this diabetic depression is coming along? Is it just random? Most likely not. There's usually a trigger. For me, I had a buildup of moments where the sugars weren't getting controlled properly. I noticed I was going high even though I took all this insulin. I checked the site. Sometimes the site was messed up. Sometimes my basal was off. Sometimes I forgot to bolus. So all these little things started adding up into this big thing of diabetic burnout. And then it was time for me to change my pump site. And then I went to the gym, and it was so long. I was like, I'll just take some long-acting insulin. Got on a pumpcation where I take a break from my pump. Things are a little messed up. And it just builds and builds and builds. And that's usually how it happens for me. So I had to recognize what were some of the chain of events, what were some of the causes for my diabetes burnout. Me personally, that's my own personal thing. That might not be it for you. But you have to identify why. Start to take a step back and understand what may be causing this, and then what can you do to make it better? What can you do? For me, I will always recommend support groups, whether it's online. Facebook diabetic support groups have been a life changer for me from an athlete's perspective, the type 1 athletes group. Meeting so many people and getting my career started because of that. So I'm really big into online support groups because that's where we spend most of our time anyways. You're probably listening to me because you found me online. Going to events has taken that online support group and made it a reality. From personally, I love lifting, so I go to Bolus and Barbells, which a friend of mine, Ruden, started, and I got to meet all my friends in real life. Another friend of mine, Danielle, started this Peer Diabetes Summit, which is a free event online for people who can't make it to conferences and conventions and all these other events. And that's coming up in November. So you always have that option of getting support and going to events, and that really helps you get through, because diabetes burnout kind of puts you in the dark. It puts you in a hole. And when you're alone and you're going through this depressive state, it can be tough. It can be tough to pull yourself out. And sometimes you have to admit you need help. These support groups are there for you when you need it. Setting another goal as well. We know we need to take care of our blood sugar. We know that's a fact. But that fact is not enough to get rid of diabetes burnout in general. You're not burnt out and then you just say, oh, well, I need to be healthy, so I'll do it. Health, surprisingly, is never a driving factor, or never a big enough driving factor for most people. I know that coming from the gym industry, personal training background. Everyone says they want to be healthy, but it's not a big enough factor. When I dig deep enough, I want to be healthy. Okay, why do you want to be healthy? Well, I want to be healthy because I want to be confident, and I'm not confident. So it ties to an emotional reason. Almost all goals tie to an emotional reason. Why do you want to be healthy? To see your daughter grow up? To become a grandmother or grandfather? To walk your kid down the aisle? To make it? On the flip side, how would you feel if you didn't make it because you didn't do your best to manage your life and your health and your diabetes? Sometimes you got to flip the script between pleasure and pain and understand what's the real goal here, and what's a big enough why that would help you be motivated to control your sugar, even through the peaks and the valleys, even through the non-straight lines, and even through, the blood sugars that are just impossible or seemingly impossible to get down. What is your why? What is that one why, that deep down why that would beat everything else, that would beat all the negative? Everyone has one. Ask yourself, find it. When you find that, I promise you diabetes burnout will be over in a heartbeat. Also, just trying new methods of diabetes management. For me, I was off the pump for about 2 years because the pump just kind of burnt me out. And when I switched back to shots, I was back in control and I felt better. I felt more freedom. And then when I was ready, I went back on the pump and I've been fine. That's okay. We are not in a set management strategy. Our life is liquid. We're allowed to change, and frequently, at whatever frequency we want, because it's our life. This is all individual. Burnout for you is different. Burnout for me is different. But the worst thing you could ever do is hide. And that's the easiest thing to do when you're burnt out. I've seen that for myself. I back away from my friends. I back away from my friends who are diabetic in the groups and on social media, because I'm embarrassed about not taking care of my diabetes like I should. Partially, I'm just unmotivated to do anything diabetes related. I know how that is. It's a real struggle, guys. I wish I could say some fancy quote or some awesome, uplifting, motivational speech right now, but I'm not going to give you that, because in this scenario, I need you to understand that it's okay to allow that feeling of burnout. And it's okay to embrace the crappy part of it, as long as you understand it's temporary. It's an emotional state that will get better, given that you accept what is and what isn't. Accept the reality of what's going on. Identify why it's happening, and figure out what you can do to make it better. Never hide from this. Embrace it and see what you can do to fix it and make it better. Diabetes management is a part of your life. It is your responsibility, and you are able to control anything that happens from it. It's not easy. I'm here to help anytime, people. If you have an issue, you're currently going through burnout, you know someone who is, reach out to me. There are tons of people like myself that are willing to help in a moment's notice. I'll hop on a call any second of the day for someone who needs it. Diabetes burnout can lead to some serious things if you don't take care of it. So I'm here. These support groups are here. These events are here for you. You just have to be willing to reach out if you need it. This wraps up today's Donuts and Diabetes Day. Diabetes burnout is a serious issue that people deal with a lot in having an autoimmune disease or a metabolic disorder even that lasts a lifetime. It's okay to feel it. We're not bad patients because of it. It just means we're real people. Make sure you guys subscribe, whether you're listening on SoundCloud or iTunes or whatever else you're listening to, or if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I will see you guys later.